But there's also something called innovative imagery, which is used in film and media a lot. And I don't know, have you guys heard of innovative imagery?
No, tell us.
Nice, awesome. Woo, woo. All right, cool. I get to say something new. Scott.
Wow. Allan Northern, how are you?
I'm very well, and you?
I'm happy to see you.
Yes, it's a pleasure to see you. I haven't seen you since I think it was in the theater when you brought me in to speak last time. That was pretty cool. Yeah. And that was also pre-premiere
too. Hello to Allan.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
So Allan is a former student.
Yes.
While
indeed.
he was a student, he was making movies. How about those apples? They're pretty good apples. So Allan is going to do a little Q&A with me, and please feel free to join in, interrupt, ask, especially if Allan and I miss something or you want Allan to speak more, okay, everyone? So this is not meant for you just to sit back and be quiet. I'm just going to start us off, okay? So here we go.
Ready.
Allan, this might seem basic, but why is video so well suited to tell a story?
It's like, you've heard of pictures worth 1,000 words 1,000 times before. But basically, when you see video associated with sound, it basically it does something with our brain so that we can like have this visceral reaction to it. That's why every single time you see a movie and you see someone like cut themselves or something, you're like, whoa, whoa. You know what I mean? So it's like we automatically like associate ourselves or put ourselves in that person's shoes when we tell it through video. And also, you can just communicate so many different complex messages by editing. You know, so depending on how you edit, you can make different video mean different things. For instance, if you have a video of a sunrise and a sun setting, and you just have that sunrise and sun setting, you'll be like, oh, that's so beautiful. But if you just have the sunrise and sun setting, and then the clip after that is, you know, a morgue or a tombstone, that completely changes your perception of what you just saw.
So that's a wonderful example about the power of editing. And for everyone here to think, when you're doing your videos with your PR firm, is what shot do you need? What shot can you add? What can be taken out? Because to me, the story comes together in the editing, as illustrated by Allan's example of sunrise, sunset totally changes with a shot of the morgue. Right?
Completely.
Or, imagine a shot of a new baby. Completely different story.
Exactly.
Right? One shot.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Absolutely.
So what type of elements to you, some basic elements, make a video good? I don't mean great. We're not Hollywood here. We want to make a good video, right?
Yeah.
If we can do great, that's great. But I want them to make a good video.
Definitely. So you know
make
that
a good video, or make a good video better.
Right, for sure. So we already know that we need. So like, are you guys lighting people at all? Is it like lighting and things like? So we all want solid lighting, right? We all want to show our subjects properly, and we also want to white balance properly. That means you want your whites to be white on screen and you want your blacks to be black on screen, so that you don't have an image that's like this murky yellow or this murky green, you know, or this murky brown. You want your whites to be white and your blacks to be black. So a lot of cameras do that for you. They have this manual white balance feature, but if you actually have like any of the like good DSLRs from the school or whatever, then you could actually use the manual white balance feature.
What about using an iPhone?
Using an iPhone? iPhones have come a long way, Scott. iPhones are able to do some pretty spectacular stuff. But I don't own an iPhone, so I'm not sure if they can white balance or not. I think they just have a built-in auto white balance feature.
Yes.
And also crisp audio. Audio is super important. You need crisp and solid audio. Obviously, if the production was like a higher, if your budgets were higher, then you would have an audio guy, and that audio guy would capture the audio separately and also edit the audio in post. So he'd be your sound mixer. So it's
All right, so let's go finish off a little bit of lighting as I pull up my lavalier mic.
Yeah.
Lighting. So notice, everyone, look at Evan right now. This is a shot you would not want because it's backlit, right? You can barely see Evan's face.
Right.
So he did good there. Now, look how much better that got. Look how much better that shot got.
Yeah.
Imagine if you had a light put on his face, improves the shot.
Very
This
true.
is the type of things to think about, right? Using natural light.
And it also depends on what effect you guys want, right? Because the light in the background could be what he's going for. If he wants to be this silhouette kind of, creature, or something, you know what I mean?
Good point. Good point.
But this is basically where you light the back of someone's head just to make it ever so slightly kind of like, stand out, if that makes any sense. So you backlight your subject slightly so that it can kind of make the subject stand out in the frame even more. And a lot of Hollywood movies do this, but you're not even supposed to notice it because it's just like a highlight. Rather, it's like a hair highlight to kind of like make their hair kind of, stand out in that way.
Some detail of the scene, something you want to illustrate. And I'm looking now at the top of my screen on the second page, Molly, Yamane, and Manuel. Completely different lighting looks.
Yeah.
But and also camera angles, right? So just the stuff we don't think about, we take it for granted, but now you need to think about it.
Yeah.
What is the mood? What's the scene?
But there's also a lot of tools that you guys have at your disposal in order, like beyond the basic, lighting has to be great, video has to be great, because with even an iPhone, you can shoot a pretty high quality product, and the audio has to be great. But there's also something called innovative imagery, which is used in film and media a lot. And I don't know, have you guys heard of innovative imagery?
No, tell us.
Nice, awesome. Woo! All right, cool, I get to say something new. So you guys know filmmakers that are very well known, let's say Christopher Nolan. Right? If you watch any Christopher Nolan movie, you'll see at least one thing that you've never seen anywhere else. He's the person, he kind of breaks the saying, don't reinvent the wheel. He's like, okay, I'm going to do something different. He's like, I'm gonna. So essentially, Chris Nolan, every single time I see one of, whether you're talking about Insomnia, you're talking about Inception, you're talking about Tenet, each and every one of his films has unique, innovative imagery that directly ties back into the central conflict of the story. And that's just whatever the main character is dealing with. So his innovative imagery is just a byproduct of whatever the main character is dealing with. And that's how you make unique, innovative imagery in your stories. But also with respect to your commercial, a lot of different companies and brands, their version of innovative imagery is essentially telling a unique story utilizing their person who they, is speaking for them, the person who they hired. Let's say Nike hired Usain Bolt, for their brand, and they wanted to make their audience feel a certain way or link their Nike product with a positive attribute or positive characteristic, which is one of the key things that PR firms use, and Nike uses that all the time. They link our heart to the product like clockwork, because they realize if you can link someone's heart to the product, then you got yourself a customer. So they essentially, what they did, let's say they use Usain Bolt, right? And they have a quick 30-second commercial about him growing up, right? And let's say it's him as a 4-year-old baby, it's just him as a 4-year-old baby, and he's in a running stance, and then he's in poverty. He doesn't have a lot of money, and then you show when he's 12. And then you start to see his shoes on, and then you see when he's 15, and then the background comes in and he has a little audience, and then he gets more clothes on. That's more symbolized that he's more of developing and growing over time. And then after that, it's like, boom, he's Usain Bolt. And then, boom, Nike. So it's like, oh crap, I could be Usain Bolt if I buy. You know, it's not like that. It's not like that simple. But it's like,
well, in some ways it is, because what you've done is show the value of editing. You're able to jump time and space.
mm-hmm.
Each of those edits, you're jumping 5 years, 10 years.
Exactly.
We all would get it. We all would get it. And I love the point that, Alan, you say, oh, Usain Bolt. He was Usain Bolt before he was Usain Bolt. But in terms of what we know, he didn't become Usain Bolt till later, but he told his growing up story, growing
mm-hmm.
up in Jamaica and becoming who he was today by edits, just moving the story forward. And I love this idea of connect the heart to the brand.
Yeah, and that's one way that like even feature films work, is that, you know, the more you can tie in empathy with your main character or a group of characters to your audience, that's the main thing that links the audience to the character is empathy. And there's like 15 different ways that Michael Haig talks about in his book. It's this book called Writing Screenplays That Sell, and he basically talks about 15 ways to essentially create empathy with your audience. And one of those ways is, let's say for instance, you have a very clever main character, very smart main character, or let's say you have a very powerful main character, or you have a very threatening main character. All of these attributes are in a lot of different ways, like they're all kind of different, but they're all kind of likable features or likable qualities or things that we kind of aspire to do at some point of our life. You know what I mean? So if you have that in one of your characters, then your audience is twice as likely to kind of latch on to that person. You know, if your character is super strong, you're like, I want to be super strong. Or if he's super smart and witty, your audience is like, oh crap, I'm going to latch on to that character emotionally. And
especially then if there's a problem or a challenge where they stumble, someone strong stumbles.
Exactly.
And then we're really paying attention to how they get back up.
Exactly.
You know.
It also works if they're clever too. If they're funny, we love funny people. Talk about commercials and like Flo, you know, from Progressive. She's freaking hilarious. She's like you have to laugh every time you see one of her commercials.
She has made so much money, she would never have to work again.
Millions.
Because her commercials work so well.
Millions and millions of dollars. I think the closest thing we have, and I don't even see him anymore, was Jake from State Farm. But they changed Jake from State Farm recently. He's not the same Jake from State Farm. I think I might be in a parallel universe or something. We changed who Jake was. So
let's pause for a quick second. Yamani has a comment in there.
Inclusive Jake.
Comments? Yes.
Love it. I love it.
Anyone have any comments or things for Alan at this point before we go on to a couple of other topics from Alan? Anything to ask? Comment?
And also a familiar setting too. There's other ways to link empathy to your audience.
Interesting.
There's
I love that word empathy, because when I was early in my career, when I was going to TV news, I asked this legendary news director, what's the top thing for a reporter? And I thought he was going to say tough. I thought he was going to say smart, curious. He leaned back and he said one word: empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes to tell a story.
Definitely. And and extrapolated upon that concept is it's easier when you have like a product, because it kind of, you can just use that product as the main, as the main fix-it to that problem. You know what I mean? And so let's say there's something that helps you sleep, and you show someone being restless and not being able to sleep, and then you show My Pillow. I got this pillow and it's gonna help you. I swear I saw this commercial 1,000 times. I'm like, oh my gosh, the My Pillow man. But it's a bit easier because it's like you're saying that my thing solves your issue and my thing solves your problem. So it's a lot easier than a brand, because Nike's trying to. Nike has all those dollars, so they can actually, show a nice time lapse of different sets and things like that to show the progression of someone's age and linking that back to, let's say, growth. You know what I mean? and showing that you're
as
going to
opposed
grow.
to a specific shoe or specific product. So the good news is each of the PR firms, you have a client, each of them has a product, you know, whether it's a farm, whether it's the Impossible Burger, whether it's just traditional hamburgers or traditional meat, you in a sense have a product that you can sort of put out there and think about how best to do that in telling a story.
Yeah.
Right? So I want to talk a little bit about audio because it's one of those things that we'd never pay attention to it unless it's done badly.
Right.
And we really react to it. We can live with video that's not perfect, but with audio. So if you don't, I'm just going to make a pitch to everyone. If you don't own a lavalier mic, and Allan, you can talk about this in a moment, think about getting it for your interviews, for your classes, and of course you could use it for your firm now, but basically it clips on right here. I think way better audio. It gets away from the stick mic. It gets away from the iPhone mic. So, Allan, what are your thoughts in terms of microphones and you know, for students to use ahead for their careers in life and being online?
I mean, Scott, I'm using one right now for my video. Are
you really?
Yeah.
Okay. So there we go. The testimonial right there. So from a pro is spend a little bit of money as part of your sort of career investment. You can find some cheap ones out there. You can buy some used ones out there. A lavalier mic is a great way to go. That's just the name of it. And it just attaches to your clothing.
Yeah.
I attach it to my computers, and I use it for some of my classes. You know, I use it all the time.
And one little trick with respect to using lavs is that a lot of people think that it has to be on like something where you're like talking into it like this. That's not the case. You want it to be, if it's around here, if it's like underneath the clothing,
right.
like
so
actually
like
touching your skin, like the vocal cords, that's where you want it to be. You know what I mean? That's good too.
That's where I stick mine. So I wear a button-down shirt, clips right there.
Yeah.
And just ready to go.
So that so that it's feeling the vibrations, so that it gets a lot more, you know what I mean? You get a lot more bass in your audio that way. Yeah, exactly.
So this is something to think about for yourself and also for your PR firms. Audio. Let's talk about existing video, because there might be a lot of good video out there already.
Oh, tons.
So a lot of them, Allan, they're working with Beyond Meat, Impossible Burger. They're also working for Cattlemen's Association.
Oh, that's awesome.
And a local farm. So places to first off find footage and then using that footage. And when I say using, I mean finding free footage and then sort of editing that into the piece you want to use.
Okay, so
that aspect.
Yeah, free footage, definitely. So there are a lot of different resources that you can use. One mainly, obviously, I'm sure you guys all know it, YouTube. YouTube is a big one, but I bet you guys did not know that YouTube had a feature that you can actually search the Creative Commons footage on YouTube.
So let's ask this in chat. How many of you know, have heard or used Creative Commons? Just put yes or no in chat if you've used or heard of or used. Okay, a lot of no's, one yes. So Creative Commons 101, tell about that because it's a valuable resource, especially for this project.
Yeah, so Creative Commons basically means there's different tiers to it, but essentially what it means is that it's public domain for your usage to do whatever you want. Now, there are different versions of Creative Commons. There's one Creative Commons that you can use for like, you know, for one purpose, but not for advertising purposes or commercial purposes. There's different kinds of Creative Commons. So if you want to know all about Creative Commons, then you guys can visit creativecommons.org because they have different versions.
The good news is, for our purposes, you can use just about anything.
Yeah, okay.
We're not making money. It's educational. We have fair use. And basically, this is a place that people have uploaded video that's free to use.
Yeah, exactly. So what you can do is actually, there's a place where you can filter video on YouTube, and you can search a term. Then after you search a term, you'll see like 100 million results or whatever, right? And then you basically can go under and filter out the results, and then you'll be able to see. You'll either say public domain or you'll see Creative Commons. And then you just click on that and you'll see the results will shrink from 100 million to about a million or so. But you're going to get like, a lot of different footage that you can use. So that's one free resource. Another resource is archive.org. And archive.org, you'll be able to find both music and you'll be able to find video on archive.org. So
that's another good point about music and sounds. Any other place for sounds, sound effects, music that you use and like and suggest for a student video?
When I was working for a conservative think tank when I was an undergrad, I think I was working for what was it called? It was a think tank. Was it American
AEI?
Enterprise Institute? Yeah. I was working for AEI, and
they have so much money. So much money.
And they didn't pay me a dime, Scott. Not a dime. I was working for them for free for a year. They had me find all their Creative Commons footage, and all their stuff. So they had me go on freemusicarchive.org. Is basically a derivative of archive.org, and that's what I went to. So to find like good things, you got to do some digging because it's free. You know what I mean? So you might come across the first 10 pages of results and be like, oh, this sounds corny, this sounds whack, this does not sound good at all. But, like it may sound cheesy or like it's from a 1960s commercial or whatever, but the deeper you dive into it, the more you'll get to the quality ones.
So this is something that each of your firms, maybe one or two people say, are going to do this research now and see what you can find, see what might make sense for your client, right? Let's stop for a moment and just check in. Any comments or questions for Allan? Anything you want him to talk a little bit more about?
Let's go in the chat. See if there's anything in the chat.
I have a question, Professor.
Please, Yamane.
How you doing, Allan?
Hey, how you doing?
Yamane. So I think in the spirit of this summer and corporate social responsibility and like organizations attempting to like implement, I guess, elements of diversity and inclusion in like their video usage.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, what do you feel like is most effective when trying to implement like those elements of diversity into whether it's advertising, videos, or class, or just in general? Because like, as you mentioned with Jake from State Farm, it was kind of funny, like how all of a sudden, like he was a person of color. Like I know they always used like Chris Paul and like NBA players, which I thought, was good, but I think like for their main, like one of their major contents to be kind of revolved around a person of color, I just thought it was interesting. So if you could speak to that.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to make sure I have the question correctly. So you said how do you get the PR firms to see the importance of inclusivity?
No, more so. How do you effectively use diversity and inclusion in video-related content, and like how do you use it to the point where it both seems authentic
and not off-putting, or
and just like not overdoing it, because like I mean I think people of color can pick up on those cues when maybe it's not that.
That's funny you said that. Yamane, I want to jump in. Who knows Anna Wintour, the fashion person for Vogue? Anyone know her?
Mm-mm.
So she's this white woman who's ran Vogue and had a huge influence in fashion. New York Times just had a piece, and I'll connect this to Yamane's point with what she said that sort of turned me off. But basically, there's all these comments that say, to work in Vogue, you need to be thin, rich, and white. And so now she's apologized, blah, blah, blah. They have a new issue of African-American designers, models, etc. But here's what she said, Yamane, which really, it just seemed false to me. She says that she's committed to do the work. And that phrase, do the work, to me, I get what she's trying to say, but it seemed like someone told her to say, do the work, right? Because we've heard this phrase, like, committed to doing performative. Thank you, Alexis. So that to me, even if she had the best of intentions, when she said do the work, it struck a false note.
Yeah.
It was performative.
Unfortunately, with that, like, it's like, I think that the most, okay, one thing that I don't even think about it. The thing is that I have in my brain, I've always wanted to have people on screen who look like me, but not just people who look like me, people who look like the world as a whole. So when I made my film, shameless plug, The Brotherhood, on Amazon Prime right now, it has about 7 different diverse, like, people of, like, maybe not even 7, maybe like 11 different ethnicities within that film. Just because I wanted to, so like you talk about the things that's at your disposal. Cast that is of a diverse background. I have someone who is from India. I have someone who is from where else? Someone who is of Hispanic descent. Someone who is obviously black. I wanted the film to feel more like the real world, a melting pot. But in order for PR firms to kind of see the importance of that, it really starts with the people who make those decisions, like the people who are actually in power to cast those kinds of roles, and also the director. You know, the director is a huge, if it doesn't matter what the casting director says, if the director says, I want Tobey Maguire, then you're not going to have, Michael B. Jordan in that movie. If the director doesn't say, you know what I mean? Because
so that's something that each of you, if you say one person's a director of the video, to be sensitive to these things, what's going to work for your brand, what's going to work for the real world, and what makes sense.
Yeah.
So we get this footage, found footage, right? How then, what are tips to take found footage and maybe put it and work it together and edit with footage that they also shoot? Is there any challenges or tips with that, found footage and new footage?
That's the thing. It's that's a great question. So the thing is that you might have to reverse engineer that. You might have to go find the footage that you're going to use, like start with the script, write the script, and then find the footage, and then shoot to match the footage that you're trying to match. Or you could color grade the footage, but color grading, unless it's in log is basically means that it's basically has a flat image color profile. You're not gonna be able to
There'll be no firm that will go to that distance, but I'm so glad to hear this, so you can have everyone an appreciation for what it goes into to make a video that works, that we find acceptable, right? Because some of you, once you graduate, or even while you're interning, are to work on video projects, and some things, log, lighting, audio, these things are going to come up because now you're helping produce something and you want to make it good.
Yeah.
Right? For editing, let me ask this question, Allan, in chat of everyone. Has anyone edited a video before? And if so, what software have you done? What have you used? If you could put that in chat.
I could do a promotion for one that I believe.
Please, too. We see a lot of iMovie, Adobe, Final Cut.
Oh, okay.
Pro, Premiere. Allan, go.
I used to use Final Cut Pro 7 years ago, back when there was only a Final Cut Pro 7. But for some odd reason, a lot of professionals, including myself, when Final Cut Pro X came in, I just didn't like it looked too much like iMovie for me to kind of, it kind of looked too, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like novice, for you know what I mean? Because they made it more user friendly, right?
Yes.
But
yes.
If
so
you go to
for you that's not good, but for us that might be good.
right. It's like a drop and drop, just like put things and it works. But Premiere Pro,
our goal is to make a good movie.
Right.
Not great. Good. Right. So Kiki asked to explain real quick, Allan, what's a log? You talked about log and coloring and everything.
Oh, Vlog basically means that it's a flat image profile. So that means you don't bake a lot of color into your footage. So like the way you're seeing me now, it's like you see like all the colors, for instance. But if I shot at a flat image profile, my skin would look less brown. The blacks would look more faded, and that's just because the footage is taken and more information is actually extracted out of the footage. That's why That's why it's called a flat image color profile, so that when you go into post, you can then color grade the heck out of it, and it's gonna look damn good. Because it's like it has so much information. And there's different things that I could go into, like there's like bit depth and things like that. But like that's like, beyond the scope.
If you haven't heard it, you probably will ahead if you work on a video project. It's post-production, where it's all coming together. You're putting in color, audio, the sound effects, and narration in post. Mm-hmm. That's what that terminology means. So let's talk about narration, which I'm sure you haven't talked about yet, which is fine. But Allan, some thoughts about having a voiceover, someone speaking versus not speaking. What are some considerations to think about with having narration or not having narration?
Yeah, I mean, with respect to products, it's so like if you're trying to be creative and trying to, I think it's best to use narration when you absolutely must use narration. But when it comes to docs and very short ads, you obviously, when you see commercials, narration is all they got. Downy, bleach, I don't know, like blah, blah, blah. You always hear voiceover because they don't have any time. You know what I mean? And they don't have any time and they have limited resources. You talk about Apple, they make a 30-second commercial that looks like Jesus. It's like that makes it look like the best thing you've ever seen in your life. So because they have like leaders in people, like leaders in creative storytelling that just gets the point across as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Without using narration. The thing is that they want to do things new, like do things that you haven't seen before. And obviously we've heard narration 1,000 times and you have to, but like, I think that you should use narration. I think that you should use narration for the purposes of the project. But
I think that's a great default, is to think about using narration. And as you get into it, if there's some reason that you say it makes better sense not to, okay, you can explain that reason. But I think you're going to have an easier time if you have a script that has a voiceover where someone in your PR firm is saying, the reason that we want you, to get to know Impossible, burger is because it's better for you.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is, that you're giving more information with this voiceover.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's because you have a condensed period of time and also a condensed budget. So if you had a higher budget, you could show how healthy someone would be after 10 years of eating the Impossible Burger versus someone 10 years eating McDonald's. You know what I mean?
Wow. So great creative idea. And for all the PR firms here, be as creative as you want. There's no rules or restrictions. It's how do you make a memorable video? How do you make something that's going to be like, wow, okay, I get it. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
And like I said, a big key to that is also like it's really, really innovative imagery is really, really eye-catching to these guys. Like if they see something that relates to their audience that they've never seen before, that it's like a new take on. It's not even a new. It's like you know what I mean. A new take on their audience is like they'll completely like whoa. You know what I mean.
Right. It's how do you make a burger or a meal look different? And there are ways to do it, right? In thinking of being creative and setting the scene that is memorable. And it could just be one shot that really captures. All right, so let's do this. Before we thank Allan, let's give one more opportunity. Anything more to ask of Allan while he's here? I wrote down, and Heavenly has put in chat several of the things he mentioned, including those different sites like archive.org, and we'll organize those later.
Nice.
But you can see there's a lot to think about here, including scripting, deciding a story. But this is all part of the learning, so you realize what goes into creating a video that, in a sense, is for a client, that would be public, that would be expected to perform, to do a job. It's not for fun, it's supposed to do a job. And this is part of the learning, that you can say, hey, you shot a video for a project, here it is.
Erica says, is narration considered basic? No. I didn't mean to phrase it that way, but it's like, it's kind of like the easiest thing to do, right? And so what you could do is just have it with the whole thing narrated, And then you ask yourself, okay, what narration do I not need, and I can still get the point across? Like, what can I show visually to make it actually bring the point home? Because if you say, for instance, this young boy died in 1917 versus showing this young boy dying in 1917, that's like a completely you completely change the way the audience is actually receiving that information. And the way the audience receives that information is paramount to actually how they're going to act, which is what...
I love that. I love this, Alan, about receiving the information. So, it's the sort of sender message means receiver. How are they receiving the information? And part of it is, of course, constraints. You might not be able to find footage.
Exactly.
Then you have to work around that. And one thing from my TV news days is that if you're talking about something, you should be showing that something, right? So if you're talking about families eating healthy, good Lord, we better see families, right? Otherwise, don't talk about families. Molly, you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to ask if you had one tip to make videos look a little more professional or neater. Just what mistakes do you see most often that are easily fixable?
Oh, that's a great question, Molly. So one thing, let's say for instance, negative space. That's a huge mistake people like people who aren't used to working with videos making. So like ideally, there's this term in film called mise en scène, right? Mise en scène is basically everything in the film that makes it the film. And so you just want to make sure you maximize what your audience is seeing in each and every frame. So let's say, for instance, to get the point across, I don't need the bookshelf behind me, then take the bookshelf out behind you and just do a closer shot of my face. You know what I mean? But all of the information on the screen must be necessary in order to get the information across as efficiently as possible. But novice, like quote unquote novice mistakes is just showing extraneous information like my whiteboard and my Powerpuff Girl that nobody needs to see. You know what I mean? So, and also audio is huge, like massive. Like it's so because like to get like you guys don't have the budget to like get a sound mixer, right? So just make sure the audio is just as close to the subject as possible without being in the frame if it's not supposed to be in the frame. If it can be in the frame, that's fine, that's great. But we don't want like a boom, like right, you know what I mean? Like right there.
Right, but good example, not that anyone's going to do this, but you could follow this example. If you were working for, let's say, the meat industry, right? And you wanted to attack, the sort of fake meats, you could do a man on the street with a microphone, literally like this, and saying, you could shoot 100 interviews, just as an example, and say, what do you think of those fake meats, those other burgers? And maybe only 5 people say something that's usable. You would use those 5 people, and the microphone would be there. We'd all get its man on the street. We'd have no idea you had 95 we didn't use, but this idea that sometimes the audio, the mic, and the shot can work. Other times, maybe you want to have a lavalier, so it's a little bit more discreet, thinking through your shots. And I like what you said, Alan, about extraneous information.
Yeah.
I know negative space from print ads. What do you mean by negative space within a video?
That
Same sort of thing?
That just means that it's like it's for with respect to your audience, it's information that they don't need. You know what I mean? So for instance, let's say if I had me and I had bokeh in the background. It's like blurred. Don't you know in movies you see blurry backgrounds? Like that's a stylized look. That looks sexy. That makes your footage look beautiful. So let's say you're going for that. But again, you don't have any extraneous information there. You're going for cinematic. Going for cinematic video. Oh yeah. I love bokeh. I love me some bokeh. Are you crazy? Like in every single shot of the Brotherhood, you're gonna see bokeh. I need bokeh. I need to feel like I'm watching Dr. House on Fox or something. I need it in my life. So I'm sorry, I got carried away with bokeh. What were you saying, Scott?
Listen, nothing beats bokeh. I think that's perfect. If students want to get a hold of you with a question or two, And please don't worry about an overload. This would be like one from each firm. How would they get a hold of you, Allan? How about a round of applause, virtual and real?
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you for having me, Scott.
Allan, this was fun. You look great. You sound great. You are great.
Thank you. So do you. Are you crazy? You've been to like 10,000 countries and you're still in one piece? How is that possible? Looking strong? Like, you're still like, how is that? Like, I don't know. I went to Canada and I was like, I can't. I
have great peripheral vision, and while I'm generally trusting, I'm always thinking about being a little bit careful so I don't have some crazy situation. And if the class remembers, I'll tell you, when I was in Petra with a former student, Chris, several years ago, where we thought we were going to get kidnapped on horseback, and how we met this guy who's walking for 7 years for National Geographic. Nothing happened. We thought we'd get kidnapped. But I said, if they kidnap us, this is great. I mean, they deserve it. They've earned this. Allan, you are fantastic. You're fun, and I'm going to be looking at your film.
Awesome. Please do.
I appreciate your time and expertise.
And thank you, Evan, and thank you, Chase. I see that. Okay, cool. Yes, absolutely. Please take a look at it. All right.
Bokeh. We always have bokeh.
Indeed. All righty.
See you, Allan.
See you later.